and I turn around and I see Donald Trump in like a full tuxedo giving a press briefing, and
Oh man, I know what we're talking about on Monday.
the atmosphere of the room was just charged in a different kind of way, and I feel like it's repeating again.
Look, we can threaten the left with this now, like yada yada yada, like oh
We're
my
getting our
gosh.
ballroom now.
Yeah, seriously. Hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode. It's episode 48 of Washed Up. I'm Abby and this is Colin. It is currently Tuesday, April 28th, 2026, and we are washed up reporting on the weekly news that you don't have to listen to the legacy media that your grandparents do.
And this week, our episode is mostly going to be concentrated on the shooting slash attempted assassination that happened at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I'm sure everyone's heard about it by now. It happened on Saturday. As Abby said, today is Tuesday, so we're a little bit late to this one, but we do feel like we have something to add, being as I've been in that ballroom before. We're in DC. The hotel in question is a short walk away from where both of us are, and so we have some insider scoops to give you on that.
Yeah, so let's just start with some quick facts in case somehow you didn't hear about this story. The White House Correspondents' Dinner was happening in DC when an armed man tried to breach the event. I think he had some weapons, including guns and knives,
Yep.
and was stopped in the security like screening area and didn't enter the actual main ballroom.
Yeah, and anytime there's a kind of crazy event like this where something goes awry, you always hear kind of conflicting information, especially like right as the story is breaking. So I heard conflicting information even about what you just said about how far was he able to get? He didn't actually breach into the ballroom itself, but he was in like presumably an outside area trying to rush past the Secret Service people who basically tackled him or stopped him, or he tripped was another narrative that I was hearing. So again, there's conflicting reporting about all this, even conflicting reporting on whether he was able to get shots off or not. I heard that he exchanged fire with Secret Service security people, but then I also heard that no shots were fired. So again, very confusing.
Yeah, and this event is a really interesting one too, in terms of I've heard people deliberating. I heard this on the Daily actually. They were analyzing like why the suspect chose this weekend slash like how pre-planned was it because Trump hadn't been to this event before. So there's some like speculation and theories upon that as well.
Well, I did hear a bit about that, and I wanted to mention the suspect or the person they apprehended. His name is Cole Thomas Allen. And first of all, I just think it's interesting that they always refer to shooters by their full like name, first, middle, last. I'm like, it's like when your parents are mad at you or something. But just thinking of like the kid who took a shot at Trump and Butler, Matthew Thomas Crooks, they always call him by his full name. I just find that interesting. But also, they apprehended him. He had traveled from California through Chicago to DC, and to your point, he had a manifesto kind of outlining why he was trying this, and it was mostly because he was saying that Donald Trump was a pedophile and a rapist, in his words, and so he couldn't take it anymore. That he had, like so many lines had been crossed that he was like done and just wanted to do something. But then also his manifesto outlined that he was also targeting like high profile members of the administration. So that might answer that question of even if Trump hadn't been there, maybe this guy was still motivated to go after other members.
Yeah, it definitely really interesting because of everything that is going on as well. And the fact that it is being called an attempted assassination attempt, and people have been commenting some theories, some conspiracy theories about like if this was planned or not, or if this is staged or not. Because as we know, this would mean that this is Trump's second attempted assassination.
I would say technically even third, because there was another incident. There was the Butler, Pennsylvania one, then there was one on the Mar-a-Lago golf course where someone had a
Hmm.
rifle and fled. And then there was this one, but then there's also another incident, I believe it was in November, possibly January, where someone showed up at Mar-a-Lago with weapons and got killed. Trump wasn't there for that case. But so yeah, I mean the threat against Trump is very, very real. Whether or not this man was actually close to breaching into the ballroom or the event is kind of debatable, but again, it highlights the threat.
Yeah, so a lot of people online have been talking about, again, political violence and security and all the fun stuff that happens after talking about stuff like this. I mean, I think everyone on Washed Up knows how Colin and I feel about political violence and targets and things like this. But we do have some, I guess, personal anecdotes about how we found out about what was going on at the dinner.
Yeah, so Abby and I on Saturday night were bar hopping in Brooklyn, and we had left this one really fun bar to go to this kind of dive bar called the Alligator Lounge, shout out. And so we showed up at this bar, and there's like a big TV screen, and I turn around and I see Donald Trump in like a full tuxedo giving a press briefing, and it's like 10, 11 p.m. at this point, and I thought that's something you don't see every day. And yeah, so that's how we found out about it, and both Abby and I were like, oh crap, we're gonna have to talk about whatever the hell this is.
Yeah, Colin like turned to me and we were with some other mutual friends. Colin turned to me and he was like, "Oh man, I know what we're talking about on Monday." Well, it's Tuesday, but meaning that we would have to talk about it. Yeah, this is definitely something we had to talk about, and not only because it's huge news, but also because of the connection to DC. I've been talking to a lot of different friends and people about it. And it's actually crazy how many people who live here have some sort of anecdote or connection to that night, especially because it was Saturday night and the place where the hotel area took place is not a crazy isolated area.
Mm-mm. No, it's pretty busy. And actually, it was the hotel that Reagan was shot at.
Yeah.
So I'm familiar with it because people call it the Hinckley Hilton. It's, John Hinckley Jr. was Reagan's attempted assassin. And so that's just an interesting connection too. But like I said, I've actually been in that ballroom before. About a year ago, I was there for like a gala event. And that event also was stormed by protesters. So that's kind of an interesting connection there. They were climate protesters. Didn't have weapons, as far as I know, so not really comparable to this event. But yeah, people were calling out, questioning what kind of security this venue typically has. Did you hear anything about that?
Yeah, I've been hearing people call it out, but also people like making like comedic jokes about it, being like, maybe we shouldn't have events here if it's so easy to like get in or whatever. And honestly, jokes aside, it being a part hotel too, it does seem easier to get in there. Like, I don't know. I'm from Vegas. There's like a lot of hotels there. I don't know many hotels ever or in the world that like has an immense amount of security measures, and I'm not sure like how to go about that. I do think if you're having a very publicized event like this one, that there should have been extra measures to go around. I don't just think that about when government officials are going on, but just large crowds in general or big events and concerts and whatnot. I think that like that those security measures should be the same.
Yeah, I can just tell you from my experience of the event that I attended, it had several layers of security. I mean, you had to have
Hmm.
a ticket, you had to go through like a magnometer, I think is what it's called, and then you had to, get like a bag coat check type of situation. And so I'd imagine for the White House Correspondents' dinner, it would be that plus extra because you also have Secret Service there. You also have, whatever layers of additional checks and IDs that they might make you do. So I have heard from someone who's been to past White House Correspondents' dinners that that's exactly what it is, that there's basically like multiple layers of checks, IDs, security, magnometer, etc. So I'm assuming that's what was the case for this, but yeah, still someone was able to not nearly breach the ballroom, but get within close enough proximity that it's very alarming.
Because there's so many people and journalists, people who attended this event. I've also seen so many different videos and angles of what was going on when people realized that there was somebody inside, not the main ballroom, like I said, but a potential threat. Um, have you seen videos about that and how people
Yeah.
were reacting and things like that?
Yeah, and I think when you're in a situation like that, like you don't really know how you would react, or there's no real like normal reaction to it. I think people just kind of go off of instinct, and some people are a little bit more like slow on the uptake. Like personally, I have a very slow reaction time. If something like happens, it takes me a little bit to process, especially something like that. So like just a disruption or a noise. So I saw various reactions within the ballroom. Some people were like getting under tables. Some people were just sitting there eating their salad. Some people like got up, stood up, and like tried to run or what. There's all kinds of different reactions. And basically, it was the Secret Service was going around to all of the important people, like the cabinet members, and trying to like take them out of the room as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and yeah,
There's some tea about that too. Did
yeah,
you
I've been
see?
seeing like people being like, these are our protectors. Like, why are all the women like not being or not being guarded or anything like that with their wives and videos of that.
Yeah, I think you're talking about Cheryl Hines,
Yeah.
who was walking behind her like husband with his security detail, and she's just kind of like tagging along, following them out. So that got a lot of attention. The other one that got attention was Vance was whisked out of there very quickly, but Trump, it took them a minute. So people were like, "Wait, why were they so quick to get Vance out of there?" What does that communicate?
That is so interesting. Yeah, I almost forgot about that. Maybe a sign of what's been going on in our political climate recently.
Yeah, for real. Some other cabinet members I saw Tulsi, a video of her getting escorted out, and she looked pissed. Like Tulsi was having none of this. Like the woman guiding her out tried to like touch her back to like move her along, and Tulsi like glared at her. I saw a video of Cash Patel, and he just kind of sat there, kind of flummoxed.
Was he one of the salad eaters?
He was one of the like, I don't know what's going on right now. Which, to be fair, would probably be me also. How do you think you would react if something like that happened?
Mm, I mean, I think I would like to say I would be quick to respond. I don't know. I think that we as a generation were raised with so much like hypotheticals and training on if people who are threatening your school, for example, came in um and how to do things like that. So I almost feel like Gen Z feels doomsday adjacent prepped in the same way. I don't know. I try not to think about if I would respond well to an attempted assassination or a
I know.
shooter threat. I
Fair enough.
yeah, I don't really like to ruminate much on that. But I
Very
do
fair.
think I'm good at crisis management, so I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think you would be quicker than I would be. Like I said, I just would be like looking around, like observing, and I would like forget that I was in danger until, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to think about it either. But very scary, but also unfortunately something we do have to think about being in DC and attending events around DC. I'm always a bit on edge myself and like looking around at who else is in the room if I'm at like a lecture presentation. Unfortunately, like it is only rational to be kind of sizing up the people around you just to make sure, like at a glance, everything is okay. And it reminded me a bit, this whole situation kind of reminds me of September of 2025 with Charlie Kirk's assassination, where there was a air of fear all around DC after that because it's so political here. I remember going to an event with the congressman like a couple of days after Kirk's assassination, and the atmosphere of the room was just charged in a different kind of way. And I feel like it's repeating again with this most recent attempt.
Definitely. I think people have been really talking about security and about different events with high profile people. It's interesting because I like to think about at events like this or when situations like this happen, I think more about, I guess, people covering it or the attendees, like people who don't have any sort of like public facing job and like what their thoughts were. I think just like living in proximity to something like that happened, even though Colin and I were both out of town, is something that is super new to me. Like I've never been so, I guess, like on the inside and not that like we're super insider here. We're a pretty scrappy news team, but it is very different to feel like this city vibe change because I think it's even outside of like work or in people's personal lives as well, just like walking the streets.
Totally. You totally feel the kind of omnipresent security here in DC. It's really inescapable no matter where you are, who you are, because you're only like a couple of degrees of separation away from like every politician. There's a lot of paranoia around right now. Again, it reminds me of Charlie Kirk's assassination. It reminds me of when the United Healthcare CEO was killed by Luigi Mangione back in December of 2024, where it just feels like people are thinking differently again when they're out on the street or they're at an event or things like this. And unfortunately, it does speak to the political moment. There's something we say all the time. We live in very charged, polarized times. There's a lot of angry people. There's a lot of people who feel they don't have any outlet for that anger. And so those are the kinds of people you see resorting to violence. We condemn it completely, but in some ways, it makes sense given where we are as a nation and how divisive things are. Totally unacceptable, though, for people to be thinking about planning and carrying out acts of violence.
I will second that as well. It's it's really hard to look at where people land and like where how people are coping with this because I can totally sympathize with the fact that this is a very, like you said, charged political climate and people are really angry. I mean, if you've seen us talking about different events and different choices that some of our political leaders have made, you've seen how angry we've gotten. But yeah, I do want to emphasize the condemning of political violence.
And the more that we do this, you also kind of see patterns with these shooters. They're usually kind of like lone gunmen who seem like they don't have much of a social life or many connections, and they just seem kind of ostracized in general. And also another thing about them is they never really have a coherent political ideology, I've found. Like they always like pick and choose their beliefs, and a lot of times those beliefs are very conflicting. Like I've heard that this gunman, Cole Thomas Allen, alleged gunman, like I've heard that he was leaning to the left and he was really mad specifically about the rumors that Trump is swept up in like pedophilia
Yeah.
and child rape and stuff like that. So he was really, really mad about that, but he was also perfectly willing to target the cabinet members, so it wasn't just about Trump. And he was also listening to people who, like, he wasn't a fan of Hassan Piker, who is very pro Gaza and anti-Israel. And so he seems to have been left, but not like Hassan Piker left. He seemed to just have this like animosity toward the individuals, the administration, and from the rumors that he was hearing.
It's yeah. I think that people too, when they want to release a certain amount of, I guess, anger or hate in in choosing something like this to be angry about, I guess, it's really easy to show to show up in a way like that for like you said the usual suspect being like loners and it's like that like people like that are oftentimes looking for a place to release their anger in a violent way.
So I'm also thinking now of the shooter at Butler, Pennsylvania, who similarly, they've tracked his online history preceding the attack on Trump, and he had swung like from far right to far left and back again, and he was just all over the map politically speaking. And so the reason I point that out, that I'm noticing that as an apparent through line with some of these shooters, is they're people who seem to be grappling with very big issues that are very divisive, but they can't like come to any resolution or conclusion about it. So they're kind of just like treading water out there in this very toxic climate and they don't know what to do about it. And then that's when I think they get motivated to do something aggressive as like a resistance of all of the chaos around them that they can't cope with. That's just my own speculation, but again pointing out that they can't really come to any conclusion about what they actually believe. They're kind of just adrift.
And I didn't read this manifesto. Did you get the chance to see what? But I'm thinking about like, for example, looking at like Luigi Mangioni's manifesto, like that was not, I wouldn't call it a manifesto, like there is a lot other things to look at when it comes to exploring someone's mind in why they're participating in an action like this.
Yeah, and again, it's something that keeps coming up on Washed Up. I feel like we talk about that topic like once every 2 months or so. So it's sad that like I'm already kind of thinking like what's it gonna be next time? And I think again we spoke to that a little bit about how that's sort of the fear on a lot of people's mind in DC. But
Yeah, the
so another person I saw was Erica Kirk. There was a video of her being kind of ushered out. She was crying and she was saying, "I just want to go home." And that caused a whole lot of reaction on the internet. Um, I think if you're taking a sympathetic view, you can understand why she was so upset, given that her husband was murdered not that long ago, and now she's at an event where she's under some amount of threat that she's not really able to determine in that instant. Um,
yeah, yeah, totally agree. I have seen more of the flip side though. Like I've seen a lot of comments of people being like, this is more than she mourned for Charlie and stuff like that. And being like, okay, so she does know how to cry, like just different jokes and memes.
I saw that too. Yeah, and
Yeah.
we'll let our audience make up their minds on it.
Yeah. I won't tell you guys what to believe, but if you want to leave a comment, go ahead.
I would question why she's even at the event in the first place, just like we
Was she
questioned.
there as like the Turning Point CEO?
I guess. Just like how we questioned why she was at the State of the Union. I don't know. I find it all kind of a bit much.
I think she's there because she symbolizes something in Trump's eyes.
Yeah. But to your point though, I also saw she was crying, but other people I saw videos of them kind of like smiling and laughing, like after the whole thing was wrapped up and it was clear that they weren't in immediate danger. There was a lot of people
Yeah.
just kind of standing around, like talking, trying to like laugh it off in a way. I get that that can also be a fear response too. But it wasn't just all like terror and everyone sobbing and it seems like they got this under control pretty quickly. And I have to say, listening to the press briefing that happened after the fact when we were in the Alligator Lounge dive bar watching this happen, I felt like some of the members of the admin, including Trump and Janine Pirro and Todd Blanche, they were kind of
They
eating it.
looked
They
they
looked so happy.
I was gonna say they looked way too happy. It was like, ooh, look, we can threaten the left with this now, like yada yada yada. Like, oh
We're
my
getting our
gosh.
ballroom now.
Yeah, seriously. I actually literally was talking about this with my coworker today. I'm like, yeah, this is definitely going to be Trump's number one bullet point for why he gets to have his ballroom. Like,
Oh, absolutely. I think Congress actually passed funding for the ballroom on an ongoing basis after this event happened. And Trump even brought it up, I think, in that press briefing that we're referencing. I think he said, like, this is exactly why we need the White House ballroom so we can have bulletproof windows and keep it contained and safe. And okay.
yeah, and I think that's also contributing to people's conspiracy theories being like, it was fake, yada yada yada. This is all for Trump's advancement in his ballroom and to show that he is still invincible. The left is crazy. I think that there's a lot of political violence on both sides, and Trump would not talk about it if it was pointed toward the left.
Yeah, I do, personally, I do think it was real. I do think this gunman was acting off of some internal angst that he had and was probably motivated by hatred and probably was coming from the left. But like again, these people who carry out violence, you can't even really pin them to a side most of the time, it seems. But yeah, that's my personal opinion. I do think it was real,
I agree with that.
but worth asking questions and also worth questioning how people respond in the aftermath. And if Trump's instinct is to make this about why he should get a ballroom, then that does say something about him and his character and his leadership.
His character, his motivations. It's so interesting. Like even seeing like people being happy about this on TV, like what you were saying, how we're in the bar and we were like, are they even like
Janine Pirro, I swear, was
scared?
suppressing a grin. She was
Yeah,
so
literally. It
happy.
looks like they were on the verge of all laughing and their teacher's like about to yell at them. That's like the best way I could describe it.
You and I were more upset about it than they were. We were like, oh my God, we're gonna have to talk about this on Washed Up, and I just want to have fun tonight. And they followed us here all the way to Brooklyn, and it was like, oh my God. But see, they come from TV, many of them, especially Perot. And when you're on TV for a long time, you like know what sells. Like you're like, oh, this is gonna make good
Yeah.
TV. It just becomes like an instinct that you have. I would even dare I say on Washed Up, I feel like we kind of have developed that of like what sells and what doesn't. And that was the vibe I was getting off of them was like, oh, this is gonna make for great TV and we're gonna
Yeah,
get so much mileage out of it.
I wanted to say like that's why I think they were laughing or like suppressing their happiness. It's kind of scary and impressive, but not impressive in a good way, how fast their like strategic minds are working and like, oh, how are we going to spin it this way?
It's
It's
the
so,
reptilian brain.
yes, exactly. Like it's so like propaganda-y and so like let's take this and turn this into something that'll weaponize our side and further the political divide and polarization and call the left crazy and all the fun things that we always do whenever some event like this happens.
I would say they were so roused by it that Caroline Levitt came back from maternity leave before she hasn't had her baby yet, but she's like 39 weeks pregnant. She came back to deliver a briefing after she was supposed to be out and just to like level with people about how the admin was responding to this and just I don't know, I thought that was interesting. Like this was such a big story that she felt compelled to do that. Kind of speaks to
Yeah.
what you're talking about like spin no, never waste an opportunity. No good tragedy goes to waste. And luckily, this wasn't an actual tragedy.
Luckily, yeah. Attempted assassination is what they're calling it. I think we mentioned that at the top.
It is very scary, and I'm not trying to minimize it at all by talking about people's different reactions. I just think it is important to talk about, though, again, because it speaks to people's character.
Yeah, I think that's the major thing that we're looking at when it comes to looking at the way that the political elite have responded to this. But it's like if they're holding in their laughters and smiles, then why can't we tease them a little bit about it? Even though it is, yeah, like I said, a scary event.
Okay, so we talked about the admin quite a bit and the different cabinet members and their reactions. How about the journalists in the room? Did you see some stuff from them? Because I certainly did.
I think I looked at like the C-SPAN live stream and the way that the camera was just going around, like trying to see as many people as possible or like capture the chaos. Like I totally was reminded of like our advisor and how she would have totally done something like that in like her Killer Instinct. I was thinking about like her response rate to something like that as a journalist and like how I would have responded as a journalist in that moment. Um, Maybe different responses. I don't know if I would put myself in danger if I thought there was danger.
I saw, so yeah, there was people after I think they cleared everything. By the way, we should mention they canceled the event after this incident happened.
Oh yeah,
And
and I also heard that Trump wanted it to keep going and then they were like, "No, this isn't safe. Like let's keep going. Let's cancel the event."
yeah, I heard similar. And also that there's talks about rescheduling, but I don't think they've nailed anything down. So just worth mentioning that real quick. But I was thinking of the journalists in the room. There was video of some of them like snatching bottles of wine off of the tables as they're making their way out, which again, people respond differently in all these different situations, but that's an interesting one.
Maybe it was because it was expensive. I don't know. They were like, let's get our money's worth after we've spent all this money, like having to send our journalists here and get our beat and stuff. At least, like, let's grab some wine. They were only on the salad part. They didn't even get their lobster.
This is true.
But I did hear that all the food that was at the event, because it was all prepped and stuff like that, and they were only on the salad, like I said, it all got donated to all the local, like, homeless shelters.
Hmm, very
So
good.
they got to eat lobster and whatever else they had, like filet mignon or something like that.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know, as we're kind of wrapping up here, do you have any thoughts about not this Correspondence Dinner, but just the whole event in general? What does it symbolize? Us as members of independent media, how do we feel about the event in general?
I never had any strong feelings, particularly about like negative feelings about the event or strong positive ones. I think it's cool that they get to honor like students, for example. Like I know they sometimes will hand out like scholarships and things like that at the event. And I know like a lot of people in media work really hard on it. So I can't see them rescheduling it though. Way too much money.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of an elitist event, kind of like brings to mind like the Met and just these kind of like private events. I don't know, I find it a little much and a little toxic with the ways that it's sort of like the inside club getting together. I do think it's good to have the president and the press in the same room as much as possible because it does kind of keep that avenue of communication open in a healthy way where again we might not be part of legacy media, but we do ascribe to the value of the press questioning people in power. So the more of that, the better. This event is a little bit frivolous, though, in my opinion. Again, a little bit elitist. And what are they going to do? Like, they're just going to crack jokes at each other's expense. But really, it kind of feels like they're cracking jokes at all of America for not being in the room with them. Although
But
maybe someday
yeah,
Washed Up will make it big and find ourselves in the Correspondence Dinner at some point.
yeah.
Would we accept it though? I don't know if that would really be on brand for us.
Um, I think I would want to accept it. I was gonna say, go going off what you were saying, but how I do think it's important though for every industry, including journalists, to have milestones that they want to reach. Maybe this is like a crazy big one, but I do think like having awards and honors and stuff like that can motivate people to keep going in their event more than just the satisfaction of being a journalist. Not like Colin and
That's
I.
all I need.
Obviously. Obviously, that's all what Washed Up needs. Us and our 78 subscribers.
Yeah, literally. Oh my God. So, I don't know. I feel like we would consider the invitation and then politely decline.
I would love to cover it though. Like that'd be so like the White House Correspondents' Dinner from the inside, unfiltered.
I do know someone who was there, um, who like posted an Instagram photo on like the little carpet that they had afterward, and I was like, go off, I guess. Like, I probably would too if I was there. It's funny to me, like the optics of all of it and how it's so like it's all like to do and whatever.
Yeah. I can't deny that maybe I would too. Being a little hypocritical in our little washed up belief system here. So if you guys want to invite us next year, go ahead.
Invite Abby, she'll go.
Just like you'll brave Twitter, or X, I'll brave this one for us.
Sounds good.
Okay, I think we're up.
Wash,
Washed
wash
up
up
out.
out.